What is love? Do, 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 do. What is love? Do, do, do. What is love? Do, 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 do. What is love? Do, do, do. What is love? Hello. Welcome to the Love Show, where we grapple with the question, what is love? I'm Merlin Mililli. Today's Love Show asks, does love have a frequency? So today's show is about frequency, sound frequency, megahertz. I think that this show might boil down to a respect thing, interestingly, but we shall see. We shall boil it down and see. Does love, perhaps we should say here, have a frequency? Dr. Len Horowitz says that it does. He thinks that love's frequency is 528 megahertz. Apparently, this frequency can heal DNA. It's the frequency of the sun and the color of yellow-green. Its chakra point, however, is debated. Some say it's the heart, Dr. Horowitz included, and others say that it's the solar plexus. Frequencies all have a sound, but they also have many other corresponding aspects as well, such as chakra points and colors. Our planet's frequency, that is to say, the noise that our planet makes, is in 432 megahertz. I just have to say that I love 432 megahertz. And I love our planet. I play guitar by ear. I am self-taught, and I have always tuned my guitar to 432 megahertz. Not on purpose, really, or because I had some sort of instrument that could read my megahertz way out in the woods where I didn't even have electricity. I tuned my guitar this way because it felt and sounded right to me. Just a bit lower from what everyone else was telling me was in tune. So Dr. Horowitz, among others, also says that in 1939, the Rockefeller Foundation, through the British government, instituted a 440 megahertz standard tuning derived from military acoustic research to find the most dissonant, most stressful frequency for people they could find. And people were persuaded by Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels to institute this frequency, a 440 megahertz, which is our in tune now. Most pianos are tuned to a 440 megahertz. I thought the Hammond was in my zone of 432, but upon research for this show, I have discovered that no, even my blessed Hammond is tuned to a 440 megahertz standard tuning. But as I mentioned earlier, I was tuning my guitar to 432. I cannot play my guitar and the organ at the same time, so my guitar music, I normally compose on my guitar, is in 432 megahertz. My original compositions are in 432 megahertz. Because to me, it sounds better, more natural, more real even, richer, louder, with more texture and tone. When I write on my guitar, I go all up and down the neck, and I find the fret that holds the tone of my feeling at the moment. When I find the match, I write a song. If I don't find the match, I can't write the song. Today I'm kind of here. So, I could write something today in that. Because that's how I feel. My feelings weren't living in 440 megahertz. They're just next door. The difference is ever so slight. 440 megahertz makes one uncomfortable, though. That's how you know it's there. Sort of like a thorn in your side. Whereas 432 megahertz makes one comfortable. Dr. Horowitz thinks love's vibration is 528 megahertz. I think it's 432 megahertz. Neither one of us thinks it's 440 megahertz. But I do think that in tune would be love. Maybe I should start playing my guitar for the love show. I just love the circus sound of the Hammond. Circus is in town. I was at the mall recently. Something I never do. I'm kind of a weird reclusive artist. But there I was at the mall with my friend, and she was describing her fashion sense, or what she strives for in fashion. And I thought about what I strive for a minute, and I said, I strive for early American circus. And I do. I just love old circus stuff. And I was born in Bridgeport, Connecticut. It was known as the circus town. P.T. Barnum lived there for a while, and when he couldn't tour with the circus, Bridgeport became the circus town. If you wanted to see the circus in the U.S. at that time and he wasn't touring, you had to come to the circus town. And that, friends, is where I was born. My mom was in the Barnum Parade as a child. I have always loved the circus. Calliopes, carousels. I digress. If a piano had been tuned to A440 and it fell just slightly out of tune, though, say from traveling on a train in a circus, wouldn't it not fall to, say, around 432 megahertz? The Grateful Dead, I'm a Deadhead. I've always had a thing in my heart for Pigpen's Hammond, specifically Pigpen from the Grateful Dead. He had a Hammond organ, very early American circus. And they moved that Hammond all over the place. My Hammond is a 1968, which I believe Pigpen had a new 1968 and 1968. So this organ had been around. Heck, I'm in Northern California. This could even be Pigpen's organ. He had a 1968 Hammond repossessed after his death by the Hammond Corporation. Repossessed. It has the blues forever, wherever it is. So A 443 megahertz is what they typically tune the D harmonica to. I play the D. I play the blues. So that is blues, that is 440 megahertz's neighbor at 443. Just next door, ever so slightly, but not 440. 443. Excuse me. My father is a retired electrical engineer. When other kids were playing with Legos, I was playing with circuit boards. I remember pretending that the circuit boards were Lego boards like my cousins had. I would play with the little caterpillars, the circuits. They kind of look like little caterpillars. I played with the oscilloscope. I wasn't supposed to, but that thing fascinated me. And when my dad used the oscilloscope, he would tune in a frequency, strangely 432 megahertz, which is electricity's frequency. He would tune it into the oscilloscope like one tunes in a radio station. Radio waves are frequencies, but they are radio waves and frequencies. And 432 is electricity's frequency. But 440 is not. 528 is not electricity either. We are electricity. The planet is electricity. Is electricity love? Another love show. 528 is the frequency of the sun. .432 is the frequency of the earth. We have an episode from last season on Mother Earth, and we determined that Mother Earth is love. The Schiller Resolution, which includes over 2,000 singers, including Pavarotti, is legislation passed in Italy to support adopting 432 megahertz as standard tuning. Excuse me. Excuse me again. Before my dad was excuse me. It's my allergy season. I'm allergic to molds. Anything decaying is getting to me. Anyhow, before my dad was an electrical engineer, he worked as a mechanic on cars, and while he was an engineer, he would still do tune-ups on our cars at home, and I would hand him tools. To me, it seemed a similar process, though electricity was cleaner. Tuning the car, they even call it tuning. did not seem to me to be dissimilar from tuning in electricity. And all the while, my sister and the neighboring music school were tuning guitars all around me. We had a music school in our neighborhood, Baker's Music. I could hear the music school from my yard in the summer when all the windows were open. My sister also went to the music school for a while, so sometimes we would drive over there or walk over there, and I would hear people tuning from near and far, and I would hear people tuning all kinds of things all around me. My father tuning the car, tuning electricity, my sister's guitar tuning, all the students at the music school. But all the students at the music school and my sister were probably straining for 440 megahertz. Straining, stressful, not quite right. Some people say that 440 megahertz makes their instruments scream. So Horowitz goes on to state that between the frequencies 528 and 741 is the devil's tone, or the devil's interval. Between 528 and 741, which does not include 432. But gospel music is supposed to fall into this devil's interval. It's also called the whole tone scale. It's also called major second or diminished third. According to Wikipedia, in music, a whole tone scale is a scale in which each note is separated from its neighbors by the interval of a whole tone. So, one note, whole tone. So basically, it is more like the color wheel that I've spoken of in other episodes, where there isn't a line between the colors. There isn't a line between the sounds either. Merriam-Webster defines the solfeggi scale as the application of sol fa syllables to the musical scale or to a melody. A singing exercise, especially using sol fa syllables. So in 432 megahertz, you would start slightly lower than if you would in 440, and it would be do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. But in 440, it starts slightly higher at do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And you're straining for that last do. So solfeggi scale was originally 6 notes, do, re, mi, fa, sol, and la. And do would be at 396 megahertz, re would be at 417 megahertz, mi would be at 528 megahertz, fa would be at 639 megahertz. No. What did I do? Anyway. It was 6 notes. One at 396 megahertz, one at 417 megahertz, one at 528 megahertz, one at 639 megahertz, and one at 741 megahertz. The interval between 528 megahertz and 741 megahertz is said to be this interval, this devil's interval. But that is half the scale. The devil's interval is half the solfeggi scale. So, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. Fa would be in the middle, so that would just be do, re, mi, and fa. That's omitting half the sound that's obviously in the circle of sound. But if one is tuned to 432 megahertz, one can sing cyclically do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do without straining, and one need not venture even into the devil's tone. Now, I love gospel music. I really do. I love gospel music. But I wonder if, like the Grateful Dead, like the Circus, like me, if maybe these organs at the gospel churches were also, used, moved around a lot, and maybe they fell out of tune also from 440 megahertz to 432 megahertz. Maybe that's what I like about gospel music, what I like about Pigpen's Hammond organ, what I like about these circus organs, that they all had slightly fallen out of tune into tune for me. Like they fell into Earth's frequency naturally. Did you know that birds sing in 432 megahertz? In 432 megahertz, sol, la, ti, and do are never in the devil's interval. That is why the frequency 432 is so rich and full and more than 440. 440 is just out of frequency. So 741 would be way out of frequency. I would not say that it's the devil's interval, though. I would say those are frequencies outside of Earth's frequency. If 528 is the sun, then anything with a higher megahertz number than 528 is farther from the Earth than the sun. Not evil, not the devil, just farther away. Thus, harder to hear. They say, as above, so below. Or so it said when you entered into the chamber of the oracle in ancient times. I've spoken of the oracle before. And if my dad getting all greasy and his combustion engine is below, then, maybe his engineering with his oscilloscope is above, and the Earth and the sun are above that. And it's all tuning in a perfect circle of sound to 432 megahertz. And I would have to say that all tuning seems to be love to me. Very loving when you go to tune something. Even when it's just your favorite radio station. Do you not tune into the specific numbers that represent the frequency that your radio station comes in at? Or are you going to, vary ever so slightly one way or the other and hear static and be unable to really hear what you're trying to listen to, or are you going to tune it right into where it comes in? I like to tune it into where it comes in best, which is always at its number, its specific frequency. I watched my dad tune his cars with love. I watched my sister tune her guitar with love. I watched my dad tune electricity with love. I tune my guitar with love. And I tune it to 432 because, friends, 432 megahertz is love. And you can take it higher to 528. I think we can take it higher still. I don't think we need to leave out half the scale. That's like saying, oh, those colors are dark. They must also be bad. We can't use those colors. But if those colors are in nature and God used them in her palette, why shouldn't we? I look at music as the heavens singing and playing this beautiful song. I'm a composer, and as a composer, I'm just plucking out a little piece of what I hear heaven singing. It's already there. I'm either singing along or repeating back. If we listen to only half of what God is saying, how are we ever to understand it? Excuse me. I remember half listening to my parents and my teachers and then totally messing up whatever it was they wanted me to do because I only heard half of the instructions. So I think it's a respect thing. If you respect your parents and teachers, you listen to them. If you respect your favorite radio station, don't you tune it into its finite frequency? You don't tune it in to the staticky frequency that's nearby and only hear half of what you want to hear. You tune it so you can hear it all. So why wouldn't you want to tune God and the planet and your own body and your heart to the frequency that they are all singing? 432 megahertz, friends. So 432 is love and God, and it's God and love all the way up to and through 528. And past that as well. I feel all sound is love. All frequencies that we can hear are love. And God said, so God spoke aloud. God spoke first of his great creation. And then it came into being. And God said, let there be light. And lo, there was light. God said with love. All sound is beautiful. But listening to half of the beauty, half of God, is not the answer. We just have to listen with our hearts at 432. We have to tune God in with love. What is love? 432. What is love? 432. Tune God and love in at 432 megahertz, folks. It's good for you. Get out there and love at 432 megahertz or 528, whatever, as long as you're loving. I love you. Thanks for watching. What is love?